Hello,
Good
everyone.
morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Afternoon in Dayton, so I don't know where you guys are at.
Well, it's just we just made afternoon. Good afternoon.
Well, my
Good
mindset
afternoon.
is all in Africa, so I'm ahead of schedule.
Where am I?
So we're good to go. President Roberts, thank you for last night.
That was, thank you for your, thank you.
I know that was difficult to follow the teacher's instructions to read.
Your name is down there showing up, Ronald McGuire.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm trying to say to you.
Yeah, I forgot. I'm sorry.
So I was having a lot of fun with that.
Excuse me, this is Adora. Hello, everybody.
Good afternoon.
I'm on my son's computer. His name is Ronald McGuire. That's not my name. He's telling me he forgot to change his name. That's what happens when you borrow. My name is Dr. Adora Obi Nweze.
Tell him to go in there and put, because this is a historic piece that you're going to get to use. So he can just change that name. It'll just take a minute before we start. It's fine. He can do that. We want to see Dr. Adora Obi Nweze up there on the screen. Thank you, son.
I just have to remember how to do it.
Top right.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yep. I got it.
There you go.
Yeah. Rename. All right.
Miss Ophelia is coming in.
Great.
Separate that.
Not sure who else are we missing. Let's go to the list.
Freeman and Brown.
Is here. Mrs. Ophelia is here. President Roberts here. President Hayes is not here yet. Mrs. Moore is here.
Guess I'm gonna put it in there.
Mr. Freeman is not here.
But I
Mr.
put
Brown
it as a name.
is listed.
Yes.
Ms. Williams. Good morning. Mrs.
Good morning.
Ophelia. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Well, I would like to thank you for that emergency summit that you and Mrs. McNabb set up down here so we could start this process. So
Bless
we're
your
about to
heart.
make the final leg of history. We did it at the local level. We've now done it at the state level. And with the Dr. Nweze, we should be able to get national
Right.
history. And then somebody's going to have to write it up.
Oh, my goodness.
So we are 2 minutes out. I'm going to wait for the 2 minutes, and then with due respect to our honored guests, we're going to get started.
I see Tom is on.
I'm going to let everybody just kind of introduce themselves. Anyone else that comes in. President Roberts, can we start with your team?
Sure. Tom Roberts, President of the Ohio Conference, NAACP.
Mrs. Moore.
WilliAnn Moore, past president, Toledo unit, executive committee for the state conference, and past education chair for the state of Ohio, and Taskforce co-chair.
Celia Everett, National Board Member, Education
Thank you.
Pilot.
Mrs. Edwards.
Tiffany Edwards, Chief Strategy Officer, State of Ohio Collective, Freedom Fund Chair, State of Ohio NAACP, and Task Force member.
Great. Okay, we are going to start this. It is 1 p.m. President Roberts, I will yield the floor to you.
Well, thank you all for being here this afternoon. I want to welcome our honored guest, Chair Lady Nweze, to the state of Ohio, the Buckeye State. And when I was in the legislature, I always would start by saying Ohio was known as the mother of presidents. We have historical people like Neil Armstrong, John Glenn, and Jim Lowell, astronauts, Toni Morrison and Virginia Hamilton, and Dayton's own Paul Luntz Dunbar, all have contributed to the rich history of Ohio. I want to also say something I learned 2 or 3 weeks ago in Steubenville, Ohio, that John Bingham was the author of the 14th Amendment, and I didn't know that. And he is buried and was born right there in Cadiz, Ohio. So we welcome you to the Buckeye State. We welcome you to this conversation. This team has been working very hard for, I would say, at least 5 years to get to this point. As Mrs. Moore often reminds me, today is a historical date because it's something that she and her task team had in mind for many, many years. So Dr. Nweze, welcome to the Buckeye State. Welcome to the state of Ohio. And I can't forget Ohio's contribution to U.S. government. Sherrod Brown is in fact our hero in what's going on in Washington, D.C. So I want to recognize Senator Sherrod Brown. Having said that, I want to welcome you to this conversation, Dr. Nweze, and looking forward to your contribution conversation this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And I bring a real warm welcome from none other than the state of Florida. But I really have told everybody that I'm going to be in Ohio, and I didn't tell them that it was going to be like this. I didn't dare let them know it was Zoom. I've got them thinking I've flown to Ohio. Don't y'all tell
Very
nobody.
good.
Hi, Ophelia.
Hi there. We
Hi,
accept
Sarah
you
Moore.
graciously.
Hello,
Hi, Sarah
Sarah.
Moore. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
We have one other guest that just arrived. The phone number is there. I'm not sure the person, if they could put their name up, that would help, and introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Loretta Williams, the chairperson of our Dayton Unit Education Committee.
My name is Jim McWilson, and I'm working on the President Roberts task force, and I also direct the campaign for African American Achievement currently, and for 9 years with Hugh Price of the Urban League. So we're most of our participants are here. I'm sure we're going to be joined by President Hayes of Portage. She is the state education chair. But we want to get started right away to be aware of and clear about why we're here, so that Chair Nweze can ask all the questions that she wants. So we're going to go page by page, and everything's going to be left on the screen. I'm going to read it if Chairwoman Nweze would like for me to read it, and then we can go through it, or we can go through the whole thing and then go back and do a Q&A on the whole thing. So that's kind of your call, Dr.
I can
Nweze.
take it either way. Either way, I'm good.
Okay. So the very clean thing that I would like to be able to do is to get right to purpose. And the whole purpose of this is to propose to National a network website template of best academic practice models for Black students. We have that model in the state already. We went through and controlled data specifically for schools. One of my charges was to review all 609 school districts in the entire state and control for where Black students were achieving on standardized tests at the ABC level. So that being done, the key is to present specific schools and districts as best academic models for Black students. Now, there is some pushback, and I want to be clear about this, and I know the NAACP has to do it the way it has to do it given the political environment. But the reason for controlling for Black students is we had too many Black people that did not want to talk about Black students. And I had to explain to them on many occasions that unless we take care of our own first, we can't take care of and give to someone else. And that's why our students, at least here in Ohio, are still at the bottom, because there was no one willing to just take that on. President McNabb and President Roberts have been willing to do that and still deal with everything else, but that is working. So, and the next thing was to align the thinking around the concept of best academic practice models for Black students. In other words, if we know what works, we can show what works. And the data not only shows what works, but where it works, what practices work, and who the practitioners are who are making it work. Then we have less propensity to simply get into arguments about we know our children succeed. We will know our children succeed and be able to point out where it is with an address, with a phone number, with a website, and the whole 9 yards. So that's the attempt of the purpose, and those are the three laid out. I want to make sure that the team that kind of worked on this, I just want to back up a minute. And besides President Roberts popping in and out, we scheduled meetings for every single night at 8 o'clock. And whether we had an hour meeting, a half-hour meeting, or 2-hour meeting, the president was in and out. Mrs. McNabb was in and out, given authority when she was president. Mrs. Williams, who is out of Dayton, and Mrs. Moore out of Toledo. So it wasn't just in one place. We kind of triangulated this to make sure that all this came together. So I am a core person. I'm content oriented. And the last thing we did was to ship this off to the education chair in Dayton, Ms. Loretta Williams, and to the education chair in Toledo to do the quote educational thing, the germs, the participles, the commas, all of that stuff. So I just want to make sure that you always have to have people who know something that you don't know and let them do their thing. But this is the purpose. And so Chairwoman Nweze, would you like to comment on what this purpose is before we dig into more of this?
Well, quite frankly, yes, I would like to comment. First, I want to say to you that I'm very, very proud of the state of Ohio. And I say that because every state has their own way of doing things.
Right.
But I like the fact that you identified what you were going to do and you stuck with it till you did it. And so that's certainly something to be proud of, and I want to commend you for it. My question that I would ask, one of the, in terms of the purpose, is what you allowed me
Right.
to go there. I'd like to know, who do you think, let me ask you this. What do you think with your purpose that you're going to be able to do with it? I want a little more information than you've given me. For example, if there are any specifics within the purpose that you will ensure that pre-K through 12 will have access to a high quality education under what they're facing today. Today is not like yesterday, as we all know.
Absolutely.
So I want to hear a little more about what it is the purpose is going to do to impact what our children are facing now.
Okay, so let me go to this, and then both Ms. Williams and President Roberts and Mrs. Moore can chime in as we go through. So I'm going to walk through this process, get to the end, and then what I'd like to do is to make sure that there is a Q&A at the bottom where we spin through all of that, because that's what's going to make, this is the first phase of this document. What you ask for, and how it gets changed really is what's going to get the next level of doc. So this is a state level. Your questions are going to inform, as you are beginning to ask, what is that going to look like at the next level as well? And how would that take place, given that multiple states have a different plan under ESSA? They set different standards under ESSA, and they also, their ratings are done differently. So the whole ESSA piece is what we started. Our first responsibility under Mrs. McNabb and under President Roberts was to look at ESSA in its entirety and then break it down. And so go into a little bit of background history on that. And thank you for the picture, Mrs. Everett. We did get it in here so that hopefully you see that, so that there are real people. The Ohio NAACP Task Force started from a request from National to Mrs. Sybil Edwards, who was the president at the time, to have Ohio represented in a 19-state conference on the Every Student Succeed Act, ESSA, to be held in Chicago and Houston. Once those conferences were completed, the Ohio Task Force was requested to participate in the Washington, D.C. ESSA conference hosted by the president and CEO, Thomas J. Donahue of the United States Chamber of Commerce, and the president and CEO, Cornell Brooks of the NAACP, of which Chair Nweze was present and actually spoke at that meeting. Upon the election of the current president, Roberts, in 2017, the task force was asked to continue to work and to help engage the Ohio Department of Education, State Superintendent Paulo DeMaria, State Board of Education President Laura Kohler, and Ohio State Board of Education Vice President Charlotte McGuire. Just a point of reference about the state president, Laura Kohler. She made a comment and got a resolution passed at the state level last year. She was just asked to resign by the Senate and the governor here because she refused to vote to rescind that resolution where she points out the history of what's been going on with Black children. And I will get that to all of you as well. The next part of that is all of the above actions led to the current statewide task force on best academic practice models for Black students. And that's important because this particular task force is set up in order to deal with a lot of the specific questions that you are asking. And all of the task force meetings are actually on video, and they're actually on the website. And so I will pull that up at the end. So the Youngstown Mahoney County Unit 3207 template was used to identify the top 10 best academic practice model schools, districts. And that work forged a historic collaboration with the task force between the NAACP Ohio State Conference, the Ohio Department of Education, and the State Board of Education. And so we'll go into each one of those as we proceed. So each of these particular things at that point, what we list here as advantages, and I won't go through each one of these at this time because I think that may come up in the questions and answers, but these are some of the advantages. These are some of the advantages that we wanted to put up. Number one, it would enhance the desire to improve on the personal and organizational level to ensure best academic practice models for students in every school district on a national scale. Encourage dialogue with and among colleagues on best academic practice models for Black students that will result in a more productive local, state, and national education culture. Provide evidence of what works for Black students. And I want to repeat that because that's the deal. Provide evidence of what works for Black students. Build on best academic practice models for Black students. So people stop saying, well, according to the research or according to the last author, we will have actual buildings with children in those buildings that makes it possible. Then accelerate the leadership, teacher, and student growth on best academic practice model. Because when Black kids achieve, all other kids go up. All other racial ethnicities, because they're all ahead of Black kids as it stands in the state of Ohio, and I'm sure in other places as well. So it's important for us to know. And so we dug in a little bit deeper and got into what's tangible and what's intangible. So when we're talking, sometimes when we're talking to people, we forget that there are hardcore things you can point to, but there are some things that are internal and they're intrinsic and intangible. So we just wanted to drop those over there for conversation. So unit presidents and education chairs will have access to best academic practice models for Black students, something they don't have now. That's number one. Number two, best academic practice models for Black students will provide a framework to align thinking around features of leadership and teaching strategies that get results. The intangible Best academic practice models for Black students will empower unit presidents and education chairs and give them access to models of excellence to advocate on behalf of Black and other students. So we went through that particular process. The intrinsic part, and we went through this carefully and over and over, knowing that Black excellence is achievable and provable.
Yes.
When high expectations by all willing adults based on historical and current data ensure the necessary resources for rigorous instructions by effective teachers are in place, and discriminatory barriers, de jure and de facto, are removed. That's critical in terms of knowing and making sure that that happens, and then we can demonstrate that. NAACP state presidents, education chairs, parents, guardians, and students will obtain information on high academic practitioners and practice models, schools within each state and region according to their particular laws in that state. And that's why we were proposing it from the state first, because you're first looking at the state law, and then what are the standards, what are the assessments, and then if those schools are achieving those at the ABC level, whether they are standardized tests or criterion reference tests, is going to be critical that we know those issues. So we have baseline data on that. The extrinsic part is best academic practice models for Black students will help to align skeptics to mitigate challenges that inhibit Black students' academic achievement. And that was a particular change that Mrs. Williams happened to make on that I think is really powerful, because we're going to have to confront that. And I dare say, I want to say this up front, we've had more problems with Black people getting through than white people. So that we have a big job within our own community. And we have some headlines that were just made about that. The disadvantage is doing nothing but perpetuating the status quo. It inhibits exposure to exemplary models, and it perpetuates an education culture that tolerates ineffective leadership, teachings that result in poor student academic achievement. So our recommendations are pretty straightforward. Reach consensus around the need to disrupt the status quo or need for dramatic change with a greater sense of urgency. Establish a committed national team on best academic practice model for Black students. Reach consensus of characteristics and criteria for high, low level academically performing schools districts, and then replicate this best academic practice model. And you'll notice that we put Florida here first, because I'm sure you don't want to look at anything that you haven't looked at in your own state first. Is this replicatable? We didn't say, we're not saying that people duplicate. Replicate means that it should be able to work somewhere else, just given the particulars of that somewhere else. Best academic practice, A, B, and C, is A, B, and C, no matter where it is. And so that's kind of where we were with that. We're looking at a smart timeline as a part of the recommendation. And as you're aware, we're talking specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So November, do a monthly virtual once you review it, and do that with some of the state presidents and education chairs, get their input. December, do it with the 5 or 6 state presidents and education chairs, the national virtual meeting with all state presidents and education chairs. And by the first of the year, we should be able to deliver. Now, let me just explain one thing background-wise that will help you understand how I know this works and how I was able to bring it to Mrs. McNabb, Mrs. Moore, and how we sat down and talked about this. I resigned a $100,000 a year job in San Diego, California, at the request of my mother to come here to Youngstown to see why these children were not getting a quality education. And I had to do that, and I had to do it and not work any job anywhere, so that I would be free to purely look at what was best for Black children, regardless of who I was talking to no matter what level. And we've been to every level from top to bottom in the entire state. What I found out and what we were able to do, and I'm going to go to the last slide here that I added because the local unit was very involved in this particular process. So I have a nonprofit, the Family Empowerment Student Achievement Institute. And as you can see in this particular slide, which I'm going to show you, the Family Empowerment Student Achievement Institute partnered with the local branch. If you look at this picture here, there were 3,500 attending students, parents, and family members on a Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock. No music, no entertainment, no food. And from 4 to 6 p.m., we honored almost 800 students from elementary, middle, and high school for academic achievement at the gold, silver, and bronze level of achievement. So we know it works. Okay, so I'm going to go back to President Roberts at that point, and then we can get into a Q&A.
Excuse me, Gemma.
Yes.
Did you go? I think you skipped the next steps.
Mhm.
The timeline.
Go back to next steps. You went from disadvantage to timeline. Go to next steps.
We're on that. Scheduled by region, national Zoom meetings of all NAACP state conference presidents. By states, submit a list of best academic practice models and provide guiding questions so that they are aware of what it is we're trying to do, which I think this being hopefully recorded, you would be able to share whatever it comes out of here, and they would be able to at least bring themselves up to speed. So there were next steps, and as she said, and then a timeline for moving forward. So that, thank you, Mrs. Moore. President Roberts.
Beautiful message.
He's muted.
President Roberts, are you muted?
Yes, I am. Thank you. I think that there are several key words, but the key word I'm going to talk about right now is the word replicate, because I think that's what we're talking about, using the template that we will share with you and the Education Committee at the national level to use across the country through the Education Committee and through the board. One of the things that was extremely clear, what we did here in Ohio, people wanted to know, well, Connecticut's doing this or Chicago's doing that. We wanted to show what Ohio was doing. And by doing that, you can get those naysayers out of the way who say, well, we can't do this in Ohio because this, no, here's an example of how we're doing this in Ohio. And so that was a very important for me and for others to understand. It's doable because some school districts are doing it in Ohio. And so for me, this is a template, and the task force that Mr. McWilson referred to, probably we've been at it for 6 months or more, and the report should be finished by another month. And then those would be the many action steps that we will be taking in Ohio at the local level. I'll then have to put together a local campaign to get communities and school boards engaged in this conversation at the local level. So the task force report should be ready in the next 6 weeks for us to be able to distribute. And I'll just end, I'm extremely proud of the work that this task force has done. It's given me some vision for Ohio. It's helped me to refocus on education in Ohio. I'm a former legislator, and I served in education committees and looked at higher education, primary, secondary. But I think this is the first time, and I can think in my 20-some years in the legislature and in government, that we have solely focused on best practice models for African-American students. And that in itself is extremely important. So With that, Jim, I think, Mr. McWilson, we can go to the Q&A.
While we're going to the Q&A, I'm going to share one different slide so that Dr. Nweze, you can ask some specific questions. When we spoke to the previous two links, I want to go in and just pull the link up at the state level so that you are clear what President Roberts is talking about. What you're looking at now, this is the Ohio Department of Education. This is the Task Force on Best Academic Practice Models for Black Students. It gives the protocol. There is a review document, which I do want to share. There's a background and purpose of the task force. There are reading materials for all the members to review. There's a review list, and then there's a chronological look at the history of Ohio. I'm going to click this. Mrs. Moore, do you see the list?
No, I can't see it that well. It's too small.
Dr. Nweze, can you see this list? Because this is in your link, so you can pull it out. But they are members of the state board, representatives of the state NAACP, the Campaign for African American Achievement, district superintendents, career technical education representatives, principals, teachers, the Ohio Alliance of Black School Educators, charter school representative, private school representatives, local board members, parents, students, advocacy group, College of Education, philanthropic community, and the state superintendent of public instruction. I just wanted to, not that you can see that small part. I do want you to see this particular piece because it's critical. President Roberts mentioned a few minutes ago, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the person who did you say help author the 13th or 14th Amendment?
14th Amendment. He wrote the first, yes.
Okay, so the other piece of this, just so something you need to know about Ohio. Ohio was known as the Free State, but in each of the Ohio Constitution, it had a duplicitous beginning in terms if you read the Constitution. What the Constitution said in Article 4, Section 1, is that it documented and verified and validated white male primacy in the state of Ohio in Article 4, Section 1. In Article 8, Section 2, the exact language that you will find 60 years later in the 13th Amendment was actually in the Constitution of 1803 in the state of Ohio in Article 8. So it is the duplicity of how you have to deal with the system, because even within its constitutional document, the duplicity is present. So on the one hand, you codify white male supremacy, and on the other hand, you say there should be neither slavery nor involuntary servitude in the state. And so I did a chronology with links to all those documents so that as a pre-read, people should know their state from the time of the first constitution of the state. And they should follow that so that they know how we got to where we are. Because Ohio did not finally ratify the actual 14th Amendment to the Constitution until 2003. If you go to C-SPAN, Ohio, and 14th Amendment, you can watch the entire legislature and the Supreme Court come together to do that. In the initial phase, they recognized the 14th Amendment in 1867. And unfortunately, Democrats came to power in 1868 and rescinded it. So from 1868 to 2003, it was not present. So I just wanted you to know all of that is actually on that website, and it's in that particular data. There's also a, let's see here. This is the information, but let me go to this. This timeline. This is the timeline. This is a one-sheeter that allows people to look at what I just said on this one sheet of paper. You can actually see all this history. So knowing the background history of how the law dealt with with Blacks in your particular state or in any particular state should be the homework that people do first. What are the laws? And then here are the videos. The last meeting on September 17th that was actually recorded. So this is on the state website.
First and foremost, thank you everybody for joining us today for this meeting of the task force on best academic practices models for Black students.
So there are multiple videos of what's going on. The first 3 school districts that we brought of ABC school districts, and one of these districts we wanted to make sure it was 100% poverty school district in that student bill. And the reason for that is we had to neutralize this fact that has been passed around that Black kids who are poor can't achieve at high levels. So we wanted to prove that to be incorrect. And therefore, you then would have to go study those particular places. As you said, pre-K through 12, why is it working here for students that not only were they in 100% poverty, but they were operating at $5,000 less per student in expenditures from other schools that were scoring F overall as a district. So all of this is on the state website. And so that was the final thing I wanted to bring up before.
Will you share one final thing? And I think it's critical, it's important for both Ms. Averett and Dr. Nweze to know, and that's Brown versus Board of Education. And we've asked our office of, I keep forgetting the title. What is our attorney's office called?
The General Counsel?
General Office, General Counsel, to give us a opinion on something. And Jim, refresh my memory. I think Brown, it says something along the lines, if states take on the education, they should do so in equality, all equal. Is that basically what it's saying?
Basically, that's what it is. I'm going to pull it up while you talk about that.
Yeah, so we've asked National to give us some thoughts on that line of thinking, because that's critical, at least for Ohio, I'm sure for every other state to know. If we're taking on education, then we should make sure whatever we offer students, it should be equal for both Black and white students.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We've asked Ashton to give us an opinion. The first question was, is Brown still the law of the land? And 6 or 7 times he said yes. But we then further asked him to give us some research information so we can share that with our units and with you and others, what Brown says as relates to this specific topic of equal education for children, regardless of race. And so I think that's what Jim is bringing up right now.
Yeah, this is the actual piece, and we'll make sure this link gets to you as small print here, but this is the transcript of Brown v. Board of Education. Supreme Court decided on May 17th. And the key is that most people think of Brown and they only think of desegregation.
Yeah.
Or desegregation, they go to integration. But buried into this document, all the way down here under the opinion, which I've highlighted, it states the following. Today, education is perhaps the most important function of state and local government. Compulsory school attendance laws and the general expenditure for education both demonstrate our recognition of the importance of education to our democratic society. It is required in the performance of our most basic public responsibilities, even service in the armed forces. It is the very foundation of good citizenship. Today, it is a principal instrument in awakening a child to cultural values, preparing him for later professional training, and in helping him to adjust normally to his environment. In these days, it is doubtful that any child may reasonably be expected to succeed in life if he is denied the opportunity of an education. Such an opportunity where the state has undertaken to provide it is a right which must be made available to all on equal terms. That's in the Supreme Court decision.
So we're asking our Office of General Counsel to give us their interpretation of what that says, so we know we're on solid ground.
Yeah.
I'll stop there. So I think we have some.
No,
questions.
that's excellent, excellent. That
So
is
that's kind of where we are
right
now.
on the money. Yes.
So we're trying to get a historical foundation and a legal foundation,
Mhm.
so that when the NAACP is speaking, it must start with that constitutional legal foundation, Supreme Court decision, and then all other laws fall in
All of it.
right. So that's kind of where we are.
Yeah. That is awesome. Just absolutely awesome. I'm sitting here just soaking in every
Yes.
moment of it. And to say to you that I can't stop saying enough, and I'm not going to allow you to stop me from saying that you all have done a superb job. And I cannot
Beautiful.
find a step. I have not missed one step. I know every word that was stated. Trust me, I remember.
I
And
know.
I can tell you, we have a school here in Florida that we just found a national legal team to help them still fighting with desegregation. 40-some years later, they still at it.
Mm,
And, so when I'm sitting here, the only regret I have is I didn't soak it all up to give it to Florida, because I want to play the whole thing, not missing anything. I want you to know that I don't see any other road that can beat this one, because there are a lot of things that I was putting on the road. Of course, we have to do that when you're an educator. You have it all in your head. So here is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking now teachers, training of teachers. And I'm thinking teachers, the curriculum of training teachers needs to be redone.
yes.
Nobody has talked about that.
Right.
The other, I'm sorry, I know you have, I don't mean
Right.
Ohio.
No, I hear you.
Okay, watch this. Here's what I'm struggling with. I'm struggling with the step that some of us have got to pick up.
True.
The step is this. We have got to start from pre-K. We're not doing this. Prenatal is the word I should be using. Prenatal. That's when we should start the teaching.
Mhm.
Do you all hear me? Prenatal?
Yes.
Yes.
Did you know that we as teachers across this country know very little about child development?
We know that.
That's true.
And we know that, I'm sorry. I know Ohio. Yes, I know you know. Yes.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah. That's a biggie for me. The other thing is, when you talk about child development, then you have got to be able to talk to those people who really know the information.
Mhm.
The medical profession is missing for me. The psychology part of it, the psychiatric part of it, rather, and the whole 9 yards. Because we're dealing with a lot. When you say a child doesn't know,
Mhm.
I hope you know what you're talking about.
Mhm.
What does that mean, they don't know? You don't know what they know, because very few children have ever let y'all know what they know.
True.
When you start talking about who understands what we're talking about, I'm talking about as teachers, then teachers have to understand what they're actually dealing with. That bothers me. They don't. And I don't mean Ohio teachers or
Right.
Florida teachers. I'm just talking generically,
Right.
based on the result of what we're seeing. So now Ohio has come along, and you have said to us, this is what you need to do in order to get this in preparation for teaching and learning. This is the beginning step. You don't do what you all have said to me today, then you can't teach children.
Right.
Can't do it.
True.
But the one
Got
thing
nothing to go on. Got nothing to go on.
But the one thing I'm excited about, especially with you being online and the board education chair, is in our meeting with that President Roberts had with the General Counsel, the assistant general counsel. He brought in Dr. Aubrey Tolson. He really knows his stuff.
Yes.
I mean, it's just, I followed him through most of his career, used a lot of his stuff. I agree with him that we can't use white kids as the barometer as to whether black kids are achieving at a high level.
That's
There
right.
needs to be the same thing there is for a touchdown, for a home run, for a three-pointer in basketball. When the standard doesn't change, they have time to get ready, get prepared, try it, fail, get it. And it's like the guys at 3 points. They're all shooting 3 points now, but they had to practice.
Yes.
But the person who led it did most of the practice up front. So they had a best practice. Now everyone wants to shoot a 3-point. So it's having that standard that says this is what it means. And what President Roberts had the task force challenging, which is a part of what you see on that screen, is the state of Ohio had in 2018 changed from having a single academic goal for all 1.7 million children to switching to having a goal of 63.4 for Black students and 86.3 for white students. Now, nobody would have picked that subtlety up except we were already researching it. So we came across it because we were doing a comparative analysis year to year.
Yes.
And they made that change. And their explanation was, well, the Black kids are so far behind. They're now at around 40. So we think in 10 years, we can gain 20 points. So in 2026, then they should be at a high C and the white kids will be at an A. That's what's being challenged now within that structure that you saw, the discussions that are going on. So it switched from being a goal for all the kids in the states, regardless, to one, well, the Black kids are behind. So what we had to do, that's why the chronology was important.
Yes.
Black kids were not behind because they couldn't do it.
Right.
Public education in Ohio was started in 1825. Caleb Atwater had been advocating for that for years. But when they started public education in the state of Ohio in 1825, they excluded Black kids. And the reason they could do it is because the Black codes, which had been passed in 1804 and 1807, were still in effect. So the first public education for Black kids in the state of Ohio was 1831. So there was a 6-year legal gap that was put in place by the state. Between
Dr. Hayes, I want to respond to Dr. Nweze's point, but I want Dr. Hayes, her hand's been up for a few minutes here. She has a question or point.
Yes, thank you. I was going back to the childhood.
You want to introduce yourself, Dr. Hayes, please?
Yes, I'm Geraldine Haynes-Nelson. I have worked with in higher education for 28 years, working with first generation low income students. Served as an associate dean and a vice president of diversity, just in different capacities, primarily working with our students of color. Yes. So in our chapter, I want to say a couple of things because there is a lot of coalition building around how do we retain. The report card for higher education on the state of Ohio, they receive their state subsidy based upon their being able to retain and graduate. And we have the disaggregated data for African Americans, for Black and the Brown. That is the state report card for higher education. So I wanted to add that. So everybody is waiting and looking and trying and researching, how do we get at this? The second thing, when you start to talk about the whole part of development of children, and I was really excited to hear that because we know it goes from birth to the grave, that there are minority counseling teams that we utilize, that we can, in particular in the Greater Akron area, but also in the Columbus, in that space, that knows and understands. We have utilized them at the university to go into court to understand the language, the language and the impact of statements. And so I see this as an opportunity. We have several members President Roberts had me on another coalition team, and that's a broad-based team covering with the League of Women Voters. It's got ACLU, but we're looking at education. And so, and we're also looking at teacher preparation. So I was really excited. My role is a public school teacher.
Yes.
I think that that's one of the things, and I know in higher education, that's where we're at. We just went over some things with nursing. We had to correct some things in the nursing. How do you interact? Our Caucasian students, particularly with your African American patients, you can't be afraid to touch them. You got to be able to, and so higher education is at that change. I think this is a great segue for us. And then there's partners, those federal TRIO programs that have been around for a long time can partner with NAACP and help us to do some of that heavy lifting. So I think we have a great, and I'm just proud I did use the quote unknown critical race theory for my dissertation and my research. Basically, what I did was I just used that African American model. So, but to get at, starting from the very beginning, they're natural partners that can help do some of the heavy lifting that we can partner with on behalf of the NAACP in pushing this model forward across the nation.
The other thing I want to comment on what you were saying about early child education. My mother is 98 years old, and she was one of the first people in Ohio in the 70s to help bring early child education to Ohio. And I remember my cousins coming from Alabama and Florida to Ohio to learn about early child education. And so the model for what we need to do is there. You know, because we've been adding early child education here in Ohio. And one of my colleagues, Ray Miller, was one of the first people to get funding from the state into early child education. So I think the key is what you're saying. We need to get early intervention early, but we have the models in Ohio. And I'm so proud of what we're doing in early child education in Ohio. It's just that some of my former colleagues and some of the members of the General Assembly don't want to put the money there. And we know the advantages of being in early child is those wraparound services that child needs at the early ages that makes those critical points. So I'm glad to hear that's it's interested to you. Do we want to hear from everybody else? I know anybody else want to go ahead?
I would just like to say for the unit in Toledo has partnered with ProMedica. These medical, these institutions that get this money, that make money off of us, are not putting enough money back into the community in order to help us.
At the plan.
From the beginning phases, we need people. We need monies to help train pregnant young women as to nutrition, as to how important it is to read to their children, what languages, what their children should know by the time they go to kindergarten. We need to be putting money back into pre-K because that's where it all begins.
Absolutely.
If they're not ready by 3rd grade, they will not be reading by 4th and 5th grade.
That's right. And they don't.
So this is why it's extremely important that we stress that monies should be being redistributed or reallocated into pre-K education.
Right. So go ahead, Ms. Avery.
I was just going to say, this is something that Sybil, when she was here, this could have been farther along, but we didn't get the funding. And of course, Mr. McWilson and WilliAnn just did everything they could. They kept the program still going, even though the funds was not coming in. And we have to put pressure on these companies to let them know they're better off when they do things for education. Because that is the future for them and for us.
Yes. Every segment of the community, every segment.
Ms. Edwards, did you have your hand up?
I did.
Great afternoon, everyone. You know, to all of your points with regard to the funding and the necessity of receiving additional resources, both from corporations, foundations, as well as the government, I think it's going to take a truly comprehensive approach to ensure that the funding is there to do all of the things that we're espousing. You know, when we take a look at where the resource capacity has typically gone, the vast majority of those funds go towards entities and individuals who do not look like us, who provide services to us, but you're not seeing the end results of the improvement and the long-term positive impact, which then goes into every aspect of education, from PK all the way to the pipeline to prison. So as we're looking and moving forward, I think it's important, as we're developing out those partnerships, as we're bringing together these corporations, that we're also not letting these foundations who have a ton of resource capacity, also bringing them to the table to look at this model, to look at what's been done, and figuring out how to further support the work that's being done.
Absolutely. But one of the things, I'm jumping in, am I out of line here?
Oh, you're in line, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. I'm wondering what you think about the whole piece, President Roberts, of civic engagement and its impact on all of what we in Ohio, see, I put myself there already.
Yes.
We in Ohio
Beautiful.
are doing.
Yes.
Their civic engagement is absolutely, I cannot tell you, like breathing air. So how are we helping in Ohio to make sure that we have that civic engagement program real tight to the point that we can begin to get the right people in office to help us with what we are doing and have done? Because it's top notch. Let me tell you, Ohio ain't no joke. I'm happy. So I would do everything I can to help in any small way. But this issue is very important.
Well, we have, as you know, probably going back 3 or 4 years at a conference, civic engagement is in everything we do, education, health. And so I've tried to implement that as we go along, but I think there's more that can be done, because school board races are up this year.
Right.
And I've asked the units to pay attention to who's running, you know, and what they're going to bring to our children, so we can continue to emphasize that. But I hear exactly what you're saying. I think it was Victor who brought that to us in a workshop a couple of years ago, but I think that's coming from the board, the national board. And so I hear that, and we'll continue to work on that. We have a very strong civic engagement chair in Ohio, but I hear what you're saying. We'll continue to work on that.
Thank you.
Let me ask you a question, and this gets to the core of how one rolls out something, and it is having an internal discussion, because I found in working with Mrs. Moore and the people we had to run into, so I'm going to use a district to go right to what was just stated about engagement, getting out the vote, getting more people like us in the classroom and on the boards. In the local unit here, there are 7 board members, 6 of which are Black. 5 of the 6 refuse to talk about Black kids at all, period.
Get them out of there.
They won't even, they don't want to even discuss it. They just submitted a plan to the State Board of Education for approval that requested, in order to get control back of the district, they requested the state's projection by 2026 was 70%. Their projection of what they could do by 2025 was 16% of the kids being proficient at grade level in math, 16%. In middle school, they would have 14%. And in high school, they would have 17%. Now, this is a district where 56% of the kids are Black, where 43% of the people in the city are Black, and where the members of the board literally are asking for something less and what the state was proposing, and what the state was proposing is what we were in opposition to.
Yeah, yeah.
So going back to your issue of engagement, there had to be a full engagement process. And as of yesterday's news, the state actually came out, and I will share this with you, and we raised so much cane about this issue. The state actually sent back to Youngstown, says that the academic plan needs improvement. And one of the things it did was it took a look at what we had asked, and that is that they had submitted a plan for students with disabilities. And in the plan they submitted for the entire district, the 5,000 students, general ed students, their benchmarks, goals, targets were less than the ones that they set up for students with disabilities. And it is amazing when you look at how this comes about, is that you have people, and I'm talking about people that are some of the most prominent people in town in terms of leadership, advocating for extremely low benchmark goals for our children. And so it's that fight at the same time. So we had to go to Columbus, we had to go through the president, we had to get, I think we now have on the state, and President Roberts, correct me, we have a resolution from the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, from the Ohio Legislative Black Caucus, from the City Council, from the mayor, from Tim Ryan, just across the state. But all of those battles were going against those who look like us.
Yes.
And so it's a double battle that, yes, you have to mobilize. Yes, you have to try and get them on, and then they get on, and then they do just the opposite.
That's exactly right.
Of what you expect. So I think part of our conversation, when we're making the decisions, we have to know that the fight is going to be there. But whatever the barriers are, you're going to have to get through the barriers, regardless of who they are.
Regardless of who they are, yes.
Yeah, because if we don't do that up front, then we won't be armed. We can't arm the parents and the students, and therefore it's out of line. And so that pre-K 16 going to where Dr. Nelson was speaking to, that's all in place. It's a matter of lining those things up and getting those people to partner with the NAACP, especially at the state level. And that comes up from local. Like I work with an obstetrician and pediatrician, because my background is in healthcare, and they want to get involved in this, because just what you were saying was absolutely true.
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of things that I just want to make sure that the tough issues, we talk about those tough barriers in our community, so that we can honestly get to those in other communities, and keeping the law up front, so they know we're going to cite the law, we're going to cite Supreme Court, we're going to cite Title I, we're going to cite Title II, we're going to cite Title VI of the 1964. So that should be at the top of the list. So everyone knows, you know what you know, and you know what you have access to. You're going to still have to fight, but at least you're fighting on legal grounds.
One of the other things I wanted to just share was that from the very beginning, when I was brought into this conversation, President, I made it clear that for me, it was about the babies. What's going on in those classrooms, and it's not about any OEA or DEA, anything AA. It's about what we're doing to those babies in the classroom. And so I've been in conversation for off and on the last couple of years with the teachers groups and state level. We're going to meet with them in our December meeting, to lay out where we're coming from, because we are partners. But as Jim reminded me, it's the teachers only ones that are licensed. They're the ones in the classroom. And so they have to be the ones we need to concentrate on in helping our babies learn to read and write. And so that's why, for me, I've taken on a new approach to this. It's about 1 o'clock, Jim. I don't know how much longer.
Well, this is just, I want to make sure that Dr. Nweze is complete with what she needs. And
no, I'm nowhere complete. No.
I mean, if she has,
I know I got to go. I got to go, but I'm not complete.
Well, so long as we've gotten as many questions as we can, I'm hoping that this is going to record, and then I'm going to make sure that you get it so you can review it, put more questions to it, so that we can fine tune what hopefully can go to the next level, because that'll have to go through you and Mrs. Avery. But I think the key was to let you know what was there, what is there, what you've heard. We'll follow up today and send this along with any other information that you need.
Mrs. Moore, I cut you off. WilliAnn, were you about to say something?
Oh, I just wanted to say, we're not dealing in critical race theory. We're dealing in critical race facts.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
May I say
Yes, go ahead.
congratulations to you, Tom,
Yes.
and Mr. Wilson, WilliAnn, Dr. Nelson, and of course, Tiffany, all of you, that this is the way we have to come together. This is the way that we're doing it, and I am so proud of you. And may I say to my Adora, Dr. Adora Nweze, she lives, eats, and sleeps education. She'll stop a meeting in the midst of the national board and say, I have something to say. And we all listen. So what you've done today to bring her up to snuff on what we're doing will be heard again at our board meeting sometime in the near future. So thank you so much for everything. You're doing such a, you know what? You're committed. You have this on your brain. You love what you're doing because you're looking to the future. And this is why we are here. And this is what we should be about. And I am so glad our state president has been in there and picked up the gravels when you needed him and continued to do what he needs to have done, helping things to get done. And we are so proud of all of you. May I say, I do have a little something to say about memberships, don't I, Doctor?
Yes.
When I do, I want you to remember that we have to have at least 3 million new card carriers by December 31st. So when I send out the memo to you, it's not just for me, it's for all of us. So if each one of us here today, and I know Mr. Wilson is always doing the things that he sees wherever they need to be done with memberships. Could we still put that on our agenda for Thanksgiving? Anybody that we see in any increments, may I say, it can be $10, it can be whatever for the youth. We're talking about the youth now. Let's give them something to be proud of in your neighborhood. Give them a membership. Thank you so much for everything. God bless you. And
Yes, Miss Avery?
Yes.
We have 70 young people from a rural community that I have sent to national that we're waiting for.
Oh,
wow.
please.
That's
Thank
beautiful.
you.
Congratulations.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Everyone
is
important. Yes.
This is right. And every little much of whatever it is. The other evening in Stark County, we got 32 new and 8 other promises, which made a total of 40. And in Little Kent, may I say, Barberton, the Soul Food Scholarship Freedom Fund on Sunday, we got 30. And that most of them was Caucasian, and I made sure that they understood what they were doing and to go get more members to join us because we are all in this together. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, Mrs. Nweze, I'm Mrs. Moore and I, as we've been talking for years, and I remembered your speech in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And I said to everyone, I was always impressed that she wore her African queenness up front in plain sight. So I decided, having been adopted by the Dogons, to make sure that I had my outfit on today so that you could see it. So I'm gonna press this down so that you can see what it looks like.
Beautiful.
I wanted you to know that
Do you see mine?
I'm with you and I see yours.
You see mine?
Yep. And as the African proverb says, I see you.
Yes, see you, that's
Great.
right.
Great.
Do
All
I
right.
have time for one more question to?
You have time for
You
whatever
have
question
time
you
for
want to ask.
whatever you want.
I'd like for us to discuss with me about the money and how we are going to monitor and make sure the money coming from the federal government and the state is used properly by the schools. Now, let me just tell you this. My son is in the room with me, and he and I followed my mother in special ed. So one of my areas is special ed. Y'all come at me, I got you now.
I
Mhm.
got you.
But you when I say you, I'm not talking about Ohio, right? Okay, I'm talking the United States. We are misusing money allegedly earmarked for education,
Yes.
allegedly earmarked for special ed, allegedly earmarked for advanced placement. And if you start looking at the money, I don't have no problems, y'all, with sports. I'm a sporting girl. But I don't like to see that money going, usually in the athletic department is what happens. And those other departments suffer. Now, I ain't talking about nobody, but I'm just talking.
Yeah.
All right.
Ohio is
Amen.
right there, what you're talking about.
Mhm.
The special needs group in Ohio took the state of Ohio to court. And 11 school districts in Ohio have to follow a plan that they will improve on their services to the special needs students. I'll let Dr. Nelson, who's on that committee, and Gemma further expand, but Ohio is just as bad as every other state. They were taken to federal court, and the federal court judge came up with a plan that at least 11 school districts in Ohio have to follow and improve their plan. Geraldine or Gemma, do you want to respond?
Geraldine, I think, was on the original task force. We're working with the senior state attorney and Disability Rights Ohio with task force to move forward. And President Roberts has sent out, I think, to the 11 presidents and education chairs, what they need to look for. So that's coming up. That was formed last year. It was approved on March 20th of last year. They were given a year to write a plan. The plan is now out, and each of the districts have to write a plan to comply with the court order. So that's where we are now, trying to meet with that. And we've had 3 meetings with the senior attorney for Disability Rights Ohio, who has the legal right of way, and they're working with us in collaboration to watch that.
Good, good. But let me tell you, it's the other programs too, but I mentioned special ed because it's special to my son and me.
Right, gotcha. No problem. Anything else to the good? This has been special for me, so I would like for Ms. Nweze to close this. And Ms. Nweze, I'm going to put you on speaker view, so you're the only one that's in the spotlight.
Uh-oh.
Beautifully done.
First of all, I want to be sure to say thank you in a very special way. If I were writing, I usually write the little bit of Latin. I don't know much of it, but par excellente. And in Spanish, muy perfecto. So don't push me now. I ain't got another language for you, but here comes. But this has been one of the best days of my life for this year.
Oh my goodness.
It really is. You all have no idea how much I love education. You have no idea. It's to the point that I kind of think, sometimes you say, I think that person's sick. That's all they talk about. But yeah, that would be me. And so what you have done today has just lifted my spirit so high in terms of how we can get where we need to go. And Ohio, I want you to know, every other state in the union needs your plan. Every other state in the union, every school district, every child, in every part of the entity that's called education.
Right.
In the original founders' papers that they wrote, I want you to know that high quality public education was way at the top, because they knew for Black children in 1909 that this day had to come for Ohio to take this lead and to lead the other states in just what you're doing. And until we get there where you are, we have to keep working at it. So we've got to know the plan. We want you to do whatever you can to help us. I promise you that I am committed to ensuring that our education committee, that our National Board of Directors, and that all of our state conferences will know the Ohio plan. That Ophelia and I can do, and we can deliver that. She's not talking about, she won't talk about membership when we start talking about education. I
That's
guarantee
right.
y'all.
That's right.
Well, thank you so
That's on the
much.
front page.
But let me just say, I want to say, the last thing I want to say is to encourage you to stay on track. Don't get off track now. Don't get your head twisted because you see a pretty whatever dress you want,
All
pair of
right.
pants you want. Don't get
right.
get twisted. Stay on track.
Mhm.
It's the children, and it's prenatal. Prenatal. Hear me. The other part of my experience, I was over the teenage program for Miami-Dade County Public Schools, the whole school district where we had those issues. But I want you to know you are on track correctly. I have no recommendations for you to change anything.
Oh my.
Only recommendations I have is addition, no subtraction.
Thank you.
Addition and multiplication.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Now don't push my math. I don't know no other terms, y'all. Advanced math. But you're the best. That's all I got for you.
Well,
Amen.
you informed us in DC when President Obama signed the ESSA plan.
Yes.
And what I took away from that, first of all, was Mrs. Moore, who told Mrs. President McNabb that I was going to be her co-chair. She didn't ask me if I wanted to be.
Yes.
She told me.
WilliAnn.
And so we started working from there. And at that time, I met Miss Ophelia and I met Mrs. McNabb. And the first thing that they did in trying to prevent takeovers was to have an emergency summit in the Youngstown-Mahoney County area.
That's all right.
And would have prevented some, but some thought they were doing okay and decided not to come. And they did fall under takeover. And I remember, Mr. Averett, you making a comment to the press. And I said to myself, I'm glad she's on the board, because if one of us had said that, they would have probably been upset with us, because you said to the board, well, if they were doing such a bad job, somebody needed to take over. And I said, well, that doesn't go with the resolution, so I'm going to back off from that. But I thought it was bold that you saw the need. You were in the worst performing school in the district. And I want to say this to you. We just committed to a campaign on that school, because as of this past year, the Black males in that high school grade point average was 0.94.
Oh.
0.94. And on Monday, we start a full campaign on that. That's given the fact that there were at least 20 people making $100,000 or more, all the way up to $200,000 a year in leadership. And the district was getting $12,000 per student, which is equal to the amount of tuition for Youngstown State University.
And they're still under state control.
So
Mhm.
that's, it's really helps us, what you said, how you said it. That's the important piece for us, that we know that we're on the right track and that we can close out knowing that we have your
right.
support. And we felt that
That's right.
back then. That 2015, the briefing by Congressman Scott, the briefing by Senator Murray, that was sent over by President Obama, and they said, and I will make sure I send to everyone, there is information on that particular plan that I have. And I think it'd be instructive because it was called the Pathway Forward for African Americans.
Yes.
And I think that would be key. So
Yes.
again, President Roberts, as president of the state chapter, if you could close this out, we'll be good to go.
Well, I think the national board member closes out, and I think I'll just put a period or exclamation
Okay.
mark or some
Very
kind of
good.
punctuation for what Dr. Nweze said and just call it a day. We've got work to do, and you all know that. And you've been dedicated since 2015. And I'm so proud to be your president because, you know, this is just one more egg in the basket. You know, we've done, in fact, we did file a brief yesterday against redistricting. And so we filed
yes.
2 cases.
We did too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
in
very
Ohio.
good.
So we filed our brief yesterday. So this just gives me one more egg in the basket, and we can talk about Ohio and what we're doing. And I thank all of you for sharing this Halloween afternoon with us.
And we thank you. We thank you, Tom. I know you're very busy. May I say he's one of the busiest presidents, Dr. Adora, one of the busiest presidents that you can find. I can go to wherever it is and there's Tom. And he did a super job. Oh, talking about education and talking about memberships and all of that when he spoke in Canton the other evening. He brought the house down and we're very proud of him.
Thank you.
And he'll be carrying on. I told him, I said, Tom, I've never heard you speak like this. And he said, I spoke in Akron. I said, that was about 4 years ago. But since that time, found the niche, you found the spirit that this organization stands
He's
for.
excellent. Yes.
That's what it is. And you know, that's what God will do for us if we're on the same playing field trying to do work for other folks.
Well, I thank you. And again, it goes to the work you're doing. You know, I get to stand on the shoulders of giants. You know, you help me because I can speak from experience. And you've educated me a lot in this committee, this task force on education. But I see it so happen. So, you know what, I left the convention. Ray Miller talked about William E. Du Bois and the dual consciousness. And that led me to Dayton's own Paul Laurence Dunbar. We Wear the Mask. And then I read James Baldwin every year, The Fire Next Time. And that's where I was at, Ms. Averett. I was in a spiritual high on my role as your president. And that made all the difference. So thank you.
Dr. Nweze, I want to introduce you to the young people I think will take forward as we age and move on. Ms. Tiffany Edwards is leading the Ohio Collective, and they are working on a 50-year plan. My 25-year plan ended December 31st of this past year, and they are now working on a 50-year plan. So I think just having our young people, younger adults, working strategically, looking 50 years out in education, in health, and in economics. So Tiffany, if you would say something so we can close, because I think it's important for whoever sees this tape to know it's not just about the work we have done, are doing, but somebody's got to be preparing to do the work that's going to come afterwards.
Down the road.
So Tiffany, if you could, I would appreciate it.
Well, I am certainly honored to have the opportunity to speak. I don't know what more I can say. After hearing the amazing, amazing comments that have been made, the strides that continue to move forward as we think about what's happening with our educational system, you know, it becomes critical to have legacy, to be able to know what has happened in our past so that we can strategically plan on how we advance and move forward. You know, we really were taking a look at the pillars that the NAACP holds dear in education, the economic development, and in health. And we know that the institutional, systemic, and the structural racism is very real, alive and well. And our hope is to be able to glean and to garner all the information we can from our elders to be able to move forward in such a way that we honor, that we respect, but then that we continuously fight in such a way that our people finally find equity and equality. And I find that it's one of those moments right now at this period of time that we have to come together from a generational perspective, and that this intergenerational plan, specifically to what you spoke about, Mr. McWilson, is so critical. So we have to have help, and we depend on our elders for that help and that support. And I am just honored to be a part of this team and to stand in the background and do whatever I can to advance, to move it forward.
Thank you. Mrs. Williams? Mr. Brown? Yes.
Go ahead.
Mr. Brown?
Oh, thank you for everyone for doing what we do. It's a pleasure to meet you, Dr. Nweze. Miss Ophelia, it's good to see you again, as always. And President Tom Roberts, and thank everyone, Mr. McWilson and Miss WilliAnn Moore, for getting us on the right track for trying to accomplish what we need to make this a just and equitable piece with education. But I thank everyone for allowing me to help out in any way I can.
And what position is that?
I am the president of the Youngstown Mahoning Valley Unit 3207 and a member of the task force under State President Tom Roberts and co-chair with President Emeritus George Freeman Jr.
And George, are you going to say something till Ms. Williams gets ready?
No, I'm just glad that I was able to get on the call later. I attended my sister-in-law's funeral, and that's the reason that I look different than I normally look. But I believe that the fact that you were able to get Mrs. Nweze and Miss Avery on the call and tell them what we've been able to do, those of us who have been working here in Ohio, let them know what we've been able to do and see that they can do the same thing in their state and throughout the country, like you had laid out the plan.
And Mrs. Nweze, Mrs. Moore and I were state co-chair on the ESSA for President Roberts and Ms. McNabb. We stepped down as technical assistants, and both President Brown and President Emeritus Freeman are now the co-chairs. So he has presidents and President Emeritus as the co-chairs of his statewide task force. So it's just important that we also know our roles. And I know that Ms. Williams, is she still on? Mrs. Williams?
Yes, I'm ready. Yes, I'm here.
Yes.
To everyone, I just give God the glory for this opportunity to be of any technical assistance to this proposal. But now I think it's very important that we each think more strategically as to how we best move forward to move from conversation to results. So everyone have a safe weekend. God bless you.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And this is a
Thank you.
historic day, and we're about to go national.
Gemma, may I
historic.
say this? May I say
Yeah,
this before you?
You can do anything you want, Mrs.
Be
Moore. You
sure.
always do.
She eats, sleep, education.
Hold
That's the
on a
education
second.
portion.
Dr. Nweze, last night, Mrs. Moore took the floor and made President Roberts read to make sure that we were putting the right thing down. So he had to read the document.
That's WilliAnn. She's right on target.
I had to read it out loud.
Yes, really.
All right.
I just wanted to say thank you for being patient and believing that every time I came to you and I told you that you would be satisfied and you would be proud with what we were doing, you always encouraged me, and you always said the right things for me to keep my enthusiasm going. And I'd just like to say, if you have anything, like you said, you have additions and maybe multiplications, and to take us to the next level, we're available to talk with you and or your committee, or you and Dr. Tolson, for more clarity or for next steps, or whatever else we can add to. We're available for that. So just know that.
Okay.
May I say just one thing?
Yes.
WilliAnn is the songbird of Ohio, of the NAACP. And her favorite song, Doctor, when she was always wanting us to get on board, she was saying that song, "Stand by me, Lord, stand by me." I knew then that she was going to come on with that education, that she got the attention of all of us. This was like her baby through the years in education. I just wanted to let you know that.
Yes.
I know, because
Beautiful.
I've been
I know
charged with
that.
babysitting. I've been charged with babysitting, so I know that.
You know that, yes.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm going to check to see if we could get this recorded. We can. I'm going to get it to you and make
Thank
sure
you.
that, along with the update, I'm going to resend the update so you have it.
Good. Our unit
Wonderful. Thank
secretary
you.
here of education has been taking notes if you need them.
Thank you
Good.
so much.
Yes.
All right.
That's great. We will. Thank you, everybody, for the great job and for this teamwork. That's what I'm looking forward to, the synergy that we bring. If we can bring that synergy to national, and I want to say this, Ms. Nweze, Dr. Nweze, when you're talking, we can do this whole network best academic practice for Black students in the next 90 days and put up a website with it. That's
Wow.
easy to be done.
Wonderful.
The only communication is the communication through your director, that have that meeting, and then he can lead that. But that's all doable because it's an ABC. It is not a high price issue. So there's no one has to go out and raise money to make it happen, because as you said, they're using that money now in the schools, and that information is available through public records right now. That's how we were able to get it.
All right. That is beautiful. Well, I definitely will talk with Dr. Tolson, and I'd like very much for you all to meet with him and for him to meet with you. So I'm going to immediately talk to him on Monday.
Okay. And I will get all the information to you and send it to him with a copy to him.
Wonderful.
So that he'll have it. Thanks, everybody, for giving up your time, your day. And we appreciate it.
Love you, Soror.
Love you too, Soror.
Remember the word teams. Together, everyone achieves more success.
All right.
Yes.
We are the teams. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.